Let's have a stand up, shake out at least a couple legs. I find if I sit for too long, my legs tense up. So, stretch out your arms for a little bit. Don't take the opportunity to hit everybody like you usually do. All right. Okay. Stretch those legs a little. All right, everybody have a seat. I will be fast and furious, but I have a point to make. All right. So you're looking at a picture up on the wall there. That is called the hourglass. It's very famous in Colorado. It is part of Little Bear. Once again, somebody named the mountain Little Bear. They should have called it Big Bear. It's actually the second most dangerous mountain in Colorado. Now, on that section, that is a Class 4 section, so you got to kind of use your hands and legs. It's not Class 5, which is pure rock climbing, but the Class 4. Now, it becomes difficult because that's usually water flowing down there. So if you ever put your hands on rock and it's wet, it's very slippery, and then there's not a lot of grooves, so you could easily be climbing up that thing and then you just start slipping. That's why you see the rope going up the middle there. So they actually have an anchor, and those ropes are old, and most people don't use them. There's one other problem of calling it the hourglass or climbing the hourglass. What happens in an hourglass? Everything gets funneled in. And so on that mountain, the easy part is climbing it. The thing that really scares you is when all of the rock up from the top of the mountain funnels down in that one little gully, and they come flying by your head. So when you climb it, it's one thing to get up high, but you never know when a boulder or a rock that's about this side is going to come flying by your head. And if it hits you, it's pretty much knocking you off of this mountain, and then you just roll down a long, long ways, and then you splat. Yes, that is a Class 4 section. And so that means you splat, not just die. So that's why people use rope. They do not use this rope. It's usually a lot thicker, but this is the rope I brought with me. And so we use rope sometimes. I never used rope because it seemed way too hard to hook it up. And so usually I would just climb it freestyle. So Little Bear is about trusting rope. Do you want to trust that rope coming down that mountain when you never hooked it up yourself? How much are you willing to trust that? Jesus is saying to his disciples, how much will you trust me? Will you really trust me when it counts? Look at Matthew chapter 16, verse 5 to 11. When the disciples reached the other side, they had forgotten to bring any bread. Jesus said to them, watch and beware the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And they began discussing it among themselves, saying, we brought no bread. But Jesus, aware of this, said, oh, you of little faith, why are you discussing among yourselves the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive? Do you not remember the 5 loaves for the 5,000 and how many baskets you gathered? Or the 7 loaves for the 4,000 and how many baskets you gathered? How is it that you fail to understand that I did not speak about bread? Beware the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Then he understood that he did not tell them to beware the leaven of the bread, but the teaching of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. You probably read that and think, what's going on here? Well, it goes back to Matthew chapter 16, verse 1. In that verse, you have the Pharisees and the Sadducees coming to Jesus and say, we'll believe, just show us a sign. And Jesus is sitting back thinking, have I not performed signs? And they say, just one more sign. Just show us one more sign, and then we'll believe. And Jesus saying, it doesn't matter how many signs I perform in front of you, you will not believe because your hearts are hard. You don't want to believe. And so he's worried that his disciples are being influenced by the religious leaders, and they are always clamoring for a new sign, and he is disappointed in his disciples because they won't trust him. They won't put their weight on the rope of Jesus Christ. The Pharisees always want a sign, but they won't believe no matter what Jesus does. He heals people. He heals them from their blindness, from their sickness, from the lack of ability to walk. He even raises a man from the dead, but they still say, "Show us a sign, show us a sign." This is what's going on here. Matthew 16, 5-6. When the disciples reached the other side, they had forgotten to bring any bread. Jesus said to them, "Watch and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees." What does that have to do with bread? You can just imagine the disciples. They get to the other side, and all of a sudden, oh no, it's lunchtime. Who brought the bread? Peter's like, "I didn't bring the bread. John, I thought you were going to bring the bread." James is like, "Oh, guys, you always arguing about who's bringing the bread. How come nobody ever brings the bread?" And I'm sure Thomas is sitting back thinking, is it gluten-free? Maybe not. But they're arguing over who brought the bread, and Jesus is thinking, "Guys, were you not there? I fed 5,000 people. I fed 4,000 people. Why are you so stressed out about the bread?" That's why he's worried that they're not trusting him. They look around to the religious leaders, and the religious leaders, the authority figures, haven't placed their trust in Jesus, and they are looking to them instead of the Lord. And so they're not willing to trust him completely and truly. And that's why they're so stressed out about this bread. They just won't trust it. It reminds me when I'd take my son rock climbing, and we would go to the gym, and he would climb up, and he was a pretty good little climber, and he'd get up to the very top. And then I'd say, "Noah, you got to let go so I can belay you back down." And he would look at me, and he'd look down. He'd be about 50 feet up in the air. And I'd say, "Let go of the wall, and I'll let you down. I'll belay you." And it's kind of like a technique for rock climbing. And every single time, he wouldn't let go of the wall. And I said, "Noah, trust me. Let go of the wall. I'll let you down on the rope." He'd look down. He'd look up, he'd look down, and he would not let go of that wall because he wasn't sure he could trust the rope. So finally, I'd have to trick him. And I'd say, "Noah, grab the rope in front of you." Now, you do realize if you grab a rope in front of you and it's not attached to anything, you would fall. But when you're 6, 7 years old, he didn't really think about the physics behind all of that. So he would grab the rope, and then I could let him down. A lot of times we won't trust God. God is down there saying, I got you. Just let go of the wall. Let go, and I'll let you down. I will help you." And we're saying, no way. I'm holding on to everything I got. I'm holding on to this wall because I don't know if I can trust God. The disciples are the same way. Matthew 16, 7-8. "And they began discussing among themselves, saying, 'We brought no bread.' But Jesus, aware of this, said, 'Oh, you of little faith, why are you discussing among yourselves the fact that you have no bread?'" It's really hard to have faith and trust Jesus when everybody around you denies Christ. Because when we go to school, when we go to college, now I do love Freed-Hardeman. I'm a graduate from Freed-Hardeman. My wife went to Freed-Hardeman, and this is a plug, and they did not ask me to do this. Freed is a great school. My daughter plans on going to Freed-Hardeman. But I like to say it's Freed-Hardeman. I'm sure that takes away some of the coolness factor. But if you go to college, there's going to be a lot of people and these professors who have PhDs that you trust, that you look up to. And they're going to sit there and they're going to say, why would you believe in God? If God is God, could He make a rock so big that He can't lift? And somebody's going to sit back and think, wow. And they're going to say, well, if God's all powerful, could He do that? And you're going to sit back and think, oh, I don't know. I never thought of that before. That's because that's just ridiculous. Or he's going to say, the professor, as he drinks his tea, and says, but I've been thinking, if God is all powerful, could He make a square that is round? And that's a circle, yes. But somebody's going to sit back and think, yeah, but he has a PhD, he's a philosophy professor. He is so smart. No, it's a circle. That's what they're going to do. They're going to make you confused, and you're going to sit back. It's really hard to go against the grain. And so the disciples are sitting back, looking at the religious leaders who won't trust Jesus, saying, but should I? Should I? If all the people that I know are to be the experts in this, who am I to disagree with them? And Jesus saying, don't listen to the Pharisees. Don't listen to the Sadducees. Trust me. I'm a trustworthy rope. And so they have their doubts, and they dote. And I know I shouldn't say that because I'm Canadian. You don't know what a dote is. It's a doubt. I'm not sure how to say it. Yes. It's okay. You understand Canadian. Good, good, good. But we're all going to have our doubts. We're just moving on to the next point because I know you can't take me serious. Look what it says in Matthew 16:9-11. Do you not perceive, do you not remember the 5 loaves for the 5,000 and how many baskets you gathered? Or the 7 loaves for the 4,000 and how many baskets you gathered? How is it that you fail to understand that I do not speak about bread? Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Jesus says, I've proved myself. I've demonstrated the fact that you don't need to worry about bread. I have fed thousands of people with a little lunch. And when now we're on this other side and you are all wondered about who brought the bread, I'm the bread of life. I can provide all the bread you could ever want. Why won't you just trust me? Why won't you have faith that I can provide for you? I have demonstrated multiple times, Jesus is saying to his disciples, but you won't trust me. You won't grab the rope. Beware of the Pharisees and the Sadducees in your life, because you may not call them Sadducees and Pharisees, but there's people in your life that won't trust Jesus, and you will sit back and think, but who am I to trust Jesus? The influence that you have and the people who have influence on you is so essential to your spiritual formation. So if you want a mountain-moving faith, you got to be around some people who can move mountains with their faith. You got to be around people who really trust in God, because that type of trust is influential. But if you only surround yourself with people that are constantly doubting, constantly mistrusting, and they will never grab the rope themselves, there's a good chance you would sit back because of your plausibility structure, which means that we make our decisions based on social pressure and social proofs. You will say, I don't believe as well. And so you got to choose. Who are you going to surround yourself with? People who grab the rope or people who are constantly questioning God? The disciples needed to make up their mind. Am I going to trust Jesus or am I going to trust the Pharisees and the Sadducees? Where are you going to make your decisions? So I brought this long rope here, and you see it's quite a long distance. It goes a good stretch of the imagination. There we go. It keeps going. Yeah, you get the point, I think. All right, there we go. And I got this rope, and I taped off this one little section here. One little section. Do you all see this? This little section. And so what happens when you make a decision, will you trust Jesus or not? We do that with everyday decisions. So imagine you making a decision and you asking yourself, what's best for me? What's best for me here on earth? And so you make a decision for this little amount of time of your life. What's best for me in heaven or what's best for me here on earth? Now, you make a decision for what's best for you on earth. You're making a decision for this amount of rope. The problem is, in eternity, this rope goes on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. And there is no end to eternity. It keeps on going on. But so many people sit back and they make decisions based on, oh, what's best for me right here? What's going to affect me right here? And they forget that you need to be making decisions based on what's going to be best for you right here or here or here. This is why I was a terrible youth minister, by the way. I remember a girl would come up to me in youth ministry and say, my boyfriend broke up with me. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'd say, how long have you been dating? 2 weeks. And I couldn't muster it up. I couldn't have compassion. I'd be like, who cares? It's this little speck on eternity. But when you think about it, some of your decisions on your priorities, what's going to come first on Sunday morning? Are you going to sleep in? That might feel good for this little speck. But is that a decision that's best for eternity? How about some of your priorities? But I got to win that big game. Let me see if I can see the big game. Oh, it's not that big. But we will make decisions for the little specks instead of having our priorities and trusting Jesus. That what He tells us to do is what's best for us in eternity that goes on and on and on and on. That's the key to a mountain-moving faith. A mountain-moving faith doesn't make a decision for what's best for me now. A mountain-moving faith makes a decision for what's best for eternity. What's going to have the long-term consequences and the long-term rewards. And so when you make a decision, when you make your priorities, make sure you're not doing for what's best now, what's best for this little speck of time. Make your decisions for what's going to end up being best for you going to heaven and spending eternity with God. That's a mountain-moving faith. I'm going to offer the invitation, and then we're going to have an invitation song, and I'm not going to abruptly end and make it awkward for you all. But if you're not a Christian, what's holding you back? Because that is definitely the decision that's best for eternity. If you will believe, confess, repent, and be baptized for remission of your sins, that has eternal ramifications. Or if you're not living for the Lord, or if you're caught up in some sin, or your priorities are just not in line with God, is that the best decision now? It may feel that way. But is it the best decision for eternity? You have an opportunity to make that decision right now as we stand and sing the invitation song.